Okay, I'm turning on the recording, and without further ado, Rich, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself and take it away.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much. And let me share my screen here as well. But I believe everybody can still see me probably in a little tiny window, which is good. Excited to really spend some time with you today. And honestly, I'll probably go through these slides very fast. Before I even kind of begin, I want to introduce myself. And even as we kind of go through and if questions pop up, I might ask more questions about each of you as well to get to know you a little bit more. But Kathy, number one, thank you. And thanks to SCORE for really just kind of providing the right resources and the mindset to a lot of the business owners in Lancaster there and where I live. There's a lot of business owners that I'll rub shoulders with at networking events. And when I ask them, hey, how'd you get started and kind of who helped guide you? SCORE comes up a lot, which is really awesome. So, and I have some personal friends that have some small businesses, and SCORE is just a blessing. So a little bit of my background here. For the past 2.5 years, I've been working at Paylocity, which is a tech HR company that's specialized in payroll and HR technology. Prior to that, I've had, I think it was another 4 years in HR technology around employee engagement, company culture, where I worked across the nation with major enterprise level manufacturing clients. So if you drive a car that's US made, I probably worked with them, which is kind of awesome to say, but a lot of managerial experience. So even when we go through talking today, when an organization is recruiting an employee, all that paperwork, the advertisements in the newspaper, I did that before. When it comes to actually the onboarding paperwork, the training of the new hire, the development of the new hire, the approval of the time cards, like I did all of that. And even to the termination aspects. So there were a lot of things that I did in management that kind of gives me a little bit of background and the understanding of what happens day to day at a business. Locally, I'm a graduate of Lancaster Catholic, graduate of Lancaster Bible College, and you can see my beautiful wife there in that picture. I'm a very family-oriented guy, so I love kind of sharing this too. And I'm all about backgrounds and culture, which is great. My family, which is on the right-hand side there, all live local. My wife's family on the left-hand side, they do not live local. They're actually in Russia. Hence the bundling up in the picture, right? So definitely represent well in reference to multicultural for us, and it's a lot of fun to have the different travel experiences that we do have. But Lancaster is what I call home, and that's very important to me. When kind of putting together today's agenda, I wanted to keep it simple. I'm not all about like 15 different points of conversation. Let's just keep it basic. I definitely want to do a small, hey, what's payroll and HR technology? What is that? And then also, what things can tie you down when it comes to some of the paperwork, the payroll, the HR side of things, and how to free yourself up. Okay, so as an entrepreneur or as a small business owner, as somebody that's working in a small business, and you're potentially taking the reins of HR and payroll, what are some of these things that can kind of assist you? And then the ultimate goal. And of course, I'm going to leave that goal blank. If you read a little bit about the purpose of today, I'll jump in and maybe share a little bit of that at the end and get a little bit deeper into what I mean by the goal, the ultimate goal of putting things in place. But I'm going to pause there real quick. I know I think it's just the original crew that's on here. So so Christopher and Tamara, I thank you for sharing a little bit about kind of your backgrounds, and also kind of the organizations that you network with. So Tamara, that was very helpful to me as well. So that in this opportunity and kind of just us going through some of these slides, if there's any questions that you have, and Yushena as well, please feel free to jump in at any point in time. But if there's something that pops into your mind and you have a question, come off mute, say something, say, hey, Rich, I got a quick question, or throw it in the chat, whichever you feel most comfortable with. So let's jump into some basics here as kind of like an overview. Technology can be crazy, okay? It can be very good and helpful, but also sometimes too much technology can bog you down. And what I mean by that is, on the left-hand side, sometimes organizations will have multiple databases, which means data is living in different areas. There's different types of reporting tools, different types of data that comes out, and sometimes there's limitations to it. And a lot of organizations that I will first work with, it could be a combination that, let's say, we were talking about it earlier on, Kathy had mentioned around punch cards. Okay, for time cards. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I would call like the old school way of doing it. But guess what? In Lancaster, there's still some companies that do it the old fashioned way. And they have paper timesheets that people fill in. You know, there's going to be a pass through now of paper to different people. So even though I put up here multiple databases, just keep in mind that sometimes that database might be a filing cabinet down the hallway. Okay, it's a base where the data is being held. And so just know that it might not be different pieces of technology, but data could be in different places. It's not easily accessible. And so I recognize that, we understand that. And as a business develops, you might realize, you know what, we want to outsource our payroll. So then you engage with a payroll organization. And then you say, oh, you know what, time and labor. Maybe I want to track some time. So Christopher, construction, I think about it from this perspective. There's people out in the field. So what's easy for this generation is just download a different app on their phone, right? And before you know it, they have an app where they view their pay stub. They have another app where they're recording time. There's another app for maybe estimating and whatever it might be. So now you have multiple databases where things are being tracked. And before you know it, it's literally like so many databases where different data is being held, it can be very confusing. So my role is to, let's see what we can do to simplify things. And so there are, and again, this is more of an educational, not necessarily a pitch for Paylocity, but my role is to understand where are the different pieces of data and what talks well with what. Because there's this thing called integration out there in our world. And if we can move data from one software to another with ease, and maybe you really like a particular piece of software, great, keep it. But we want to make sure that that data all goes to a great place so you can get simple reporting. And a key is so that you can actually make an educated business decision with that data, right? The worst thing in the world is, you know, at the end of the day, and Christopher shared that his son has a construction business. At the end of the day, sitting down with your son and saying, hey, here's 5 spreadsheets with data. Let me tell you how to read them. And he's going to be like, I've been going since 4 a.m. It's now 7 p.m. I don't want to look at spreadsheets. I want to take a nap, right? Okay. It should be something simple to read, simple to understand. And so putting it all in one database makes things nice. So kind of an evolution. I like to share this real quick because terminology is key. You know, years ago, it's payroll, right? If we look at the top of this picture, and then there was this thing called human capital management, which in my opinion, I'm like, oh, managing human capital. That sounds interesting, right? Okay. People are capital. Okay. But in all reality, people are the return on your investment, right? They really are. You invest in the people in your organization, you provide them the right tools, the right resources, the right education, and there's going to be a return. There has to be a system in place to actually manage people and manage data. And really that's what it comes down to, and the terminology behind that. But human capital management is more than just payroll. It's the whole HR suite of products. It's a database to understand what people are coming on board, all their new hire documents, how to interpret it, their performance management reviews, all of that. Now I'll talk about that in a minute. And then kind of guiding into more of a modern platform. And on the bottom, this is really where I think organizations take a step back and they go, why should I use a payroll company? Why should I outsource it? Well, you know what? You could actually capture some hours back in your life and put it somewhere else in the business. So there's that time savings, there's that efficiency element. Well, how about the human capital management aspects? Well, let's just think about it. The more tools that you provide, the more effective and efficient you can be in the areas of communication and collaboration in the workplace. And I might even highlight or talk about that, some of the things that'll impact your culture at an organization. And here I'll kind of give a quick story. There is an organization that I work with that every other day they would send out a company newsletter, right? Well, you have people that are checking their email. You have some people that don't check their email. You do have employees that they never had an email. And so they're relying on text messages or to get it in paper format. But if they're out in the field, they're not going to see it. So instead, I was able to share with them, there is a way to leverage technology. That newsletter is going to be available in an app. It's going to be visual to them. They can see it. They can interact. They can put a little thumbs up emoji and say, I've received it. So there's a lot of different ways to just leverage technology that's out there. It's just, how do you think a little bit different? Sometimes stepping back and understanding. So that's kind of the purpose of today as well. And the employee experience and just overall connecting with your organization is really kind of what is needed right now. Employees want to feel connected. They want to be a part of something. And in all reality, speaking to this group here today, represents a lot of small businesses. SCORE, and kind of who they really target is small businesses, startup businesses, and that's a family atmosphere most of the times. And I think that that's very important, that connection element. And the employees demand a cool experience these days. And so why not give them great technology? I think that's key. And I did see we had somebody else, I believe, join us as well. So feel free, if you would like to, you can throw your what type of industry you work in the chat. That'd be awesome. And if there's any questions, feel free to kind of throw those through the chat as well. So welcome aboard. This real quick, just wanted to kind of share how complex it can be in the world of HR technology. And so again, for most organizations that are under 50 employees, I would say most of these don't even, touch you at this point in time. But I love to share this because a lot of organizations right now are in the recruiting phase, right? They're all looking to find the right talent to put into their organizations. So of course, they're going to be onboarding them. There's an element of employees being able to actually see their pay stubs. There's some type of communication tools. You might want to survey your employees once in a while to see, hey, what would you rather have? Hess's barbecue or Rita's water ice this Friday? Simple things like that, or maybe more complex. Hey, we're getting ready to offer benefits. That's a big one, right? What kind of benefits make sense to the team? What are they yelling for, screaming for? What do they need? The time and attendance factor. So imagine having all these different pieces of platforms and none of them connect, which means now you have a dozen different logins. Okay, what a headache. Logins in general is just like, you can never remember my password, right? So, but having them either work more holistically together. The other thing is, how about the data and where it moves? I think that's very important. I mentioned a little bit earlier, but there might be a point in time where you're like, you know what? I want to see the age of the employees, right? I want to see, their spouse, okay, and their age. Why? Because I probably want to get that over to a benefit broker because I want to start getting some information around what do benefits actually cost. And you're going to need age. You're going to need certain, pieces of information. Well, do you have a system where you're tracking it? And again, this is all just prompting you to understand that there are different pieces of information that you're going to want to track as a business owner, as somebody that's actually building a business or a part of building a business. Where are you putting it? And again, a spreadsheet's great, but if you have 10 or 5 to 10 different spreadsheets, it's now going to be a scramble to find which one's which and where's that data being held. So love to just kind of share this. It's very confusing, okay? But there's organizations out there that want to help you and guide you. And today, hopefully this will kind of help out a little bit. I did mention, well, I didn't mention this, up on the right-hand corner, I have a quick shout out here to like 401ks, accounting software, and even like workers' compensation. Now, I guess the key thing there is proper reporting, right? So if you are going to offer retirement, it might just be a simple IRA for a smaller business, or the accounting side of things. Your GL, where's that information go? When you process payroll, there's data and information that needs to go to these different vendors or different partnerships that you have to help you out in your business. And so it's very important that information is, number one, accurate, but it also goes somewhere. It's not just another spreadsheet you have to massage, manipulate, and email. Again, everything's all around, can we kind of help you out to position you in a right place to play? Okay, so again, sitting back and kind of sitting with different organizations, I quickly realized that there is information all over the place. There's different pieces of software that may be used by one person, but not the next. So just understanding that landscape is so huge to be able to help organizations become more effective and efficient. Okay, now, this is where it's going to get good. That was kind of my overview. The overview is technology can be crazy. There's a lot of it out there. You have to choose what works for you and understand, does that organization that you're partnering with for technology, are they going to grow with you? Or is it just kind of a cookie cutter, simple, that's all we need for right now, and then down the road, maybe we'll evaluate other vendors and choose there. So again, be wise with that. You want to make sure that it's the right technology for you, not just for now, but for future. What's their plan for growth? So don't hesitate to ask that when you're engaging with a technology company. What does it look like, 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road? If they don't have a whole bunch of projects out there to improve the technology, then it's probably just something like getting TurboTax off the shelf at a particular place in the box, right? So what can tie you up? And this one is pretty simple. Manual processes. When one of the first companies that I sat down with in Lancaster to talk about payroll, there were about 70 employees. They were growing fast. So they were probably going to be, I think, within 2 months beyond me having that first conversation, at about 100 employees. And I asked them, I was like, wow, that's great. So you're probably going to bring on, maybe about 10 people a month. Most of them will stick, right? But at the same time, I'm like, you're probably filtering through 40 to 50 people a month to find the 10 right ones. So tell me about your recruiting experience. How are you bringing people in? And literally it's a file, just file upon file on their desk, all these manila folders. And I said, so it's a manual process. Yep. Next question I asked, great. So when it comes to the onboarding, that's all the new hire paperwork there too. Yep, manual process. Well, tell me about time cards. And they literally just looked at me and said, Rich, just assume everything's manual. And I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. Just paper, paper, paper. That's in my mind, just piles of paper, right? And it was exactly true. So the processes that you have in place, again, and I'll put it from this perspective. And I apologize if nobody or if some of you get this and some of you don't. But in the game of baseball, there's only one way to run from home base to first base. It's fast. That's the only way to run. Okay, straight and fast. So there's a process. Okay, it's a very simple process. For most organizations, there's a process of doing things, but it probably hasn't been simplified yet, right? Or there's not certain guide rails that have been put in place. So sometimes you do need to kind of reach externally to say, okay, hey, Score Mentor, I have a process in place. I don't know if it's the most efficient. Can you give me an AOK that it is efficient? Or is there something else that maybe I should be thinking of to kind of take more of the weight off my shoulders? And so again, some of that could be outsourcing it, right, to a technology company. It just depends on where you're at in the process and what are your skill sets. That is something I absolutely love talking about. And maybe I'll talk about that in a minute under mindset, but the wrong partnerships, I'll tell you, that's everything, okay? Or it's the worst thing. So you need to identify the right partnerships for you. Again, sometimes it's, hey, I bumped into somebody. Whenever you bump into somebody and you meet them, even for right now, right? Okay, hey, I just met Rich with Paylocity. It's great. Payroll, this is amazing. My recommendation to you is always make sure that you're evaluating more than one, okay? You want to identify a couple key people in that industry if you're now looking for payroll. And number one, do they jive with me in reference to individual like persona connecting? Is the technology up to par? If it's a technology, what are their offerings? What's the price point? You want to look at everything. What's the ultimate value that that organization will bring as a partner to you, right? There's so many times that organizations will just say, oh yeah, they were just a really cheap option. And so that's what we stuck with. And they've been using it now, not just for 1 year, but for 10 years. And that cheap option never enhanced itself, right? There was no like upgrades available. And so what they were using was technology from 10 years ago. And today things move so fast, we need to always be evaluating. I think about it from this perspective. If you have an iPhone, I'm assuming some people have iPhones or Androids on here, okay? If you have a phone, it's automatically updating however many months, right? That's huge. Is your technology upgrading? You know, are your processes upgrading? These are the things you need to constantly evaluate. Now, again, those right partnerships will help keep you balanced on that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. The mindset perspective, you know, again, I'll dive into this a little bit, but, you know, I would say from a mindset perspective, this is what I hear all the time. It's just the way we've always done it. Anybody ever hear that before? You know, well, we don't do change well here. Oh, okay. And how much does it cost, right? Those are some of the mindsets, situations that I kind of feel that some organizations are trapped in. And, you know, my backgrounds, I don't know if I mentioned this, well, I mentioned I graduated from Lancaster Bible College. So I was in pastoral ministry for about 4.5 years as a pastor in the Lancaster County area. And I remember hearing, you know, we've just never done it that way. And I'm thinking to myself, well, are you afraid to change? Are you afraid to try? Like let's be a little excited here, right? Okay, let's be adventurous. And you know, I think sometimes that's it too. It's, you know, we get so comfortable, complacent. We do the same thing every day, and it's like we're just comfortable with where we're at. You know what? Shake it up a little bit. And that's my challenge to you: is be adventurous, shake it up, like look at other options. And sometimes it does take, you know, something crazy to happen for you to realize, you know what, maybe I should have done something. Maybe I should have filed my taxes. Don't make that mistake. But if there's somebody there to help guide you and assist you or to do it for you, that's even a plus. So again, look at some of those partnerships. What do they offer? What's really happening? Yeah, if we don't do change well, then how did we survive last year? Right? Let's just be real with it. Last year was a wild storm of change, and it's still coming. A lot of interesting things happening. So I'll just leave that one alone. And the last part is, how much does it cost? You know, I intentionally, in a lot of kind of sharing and what I do is I will remove the word price, remove the word cost. And if somebody approaches me, even if I'm looking to evaluate software, because I use software in what I do outside of, you know, our Paylocity, for some of my networking and other things, I'm always asking that vendor, okay, so tell me about the return on investment. You know, let's talk about the investment. And what is the investment? I'm never asking about what's the cost, what's the price, it's what's the investment for this? Because I know if I'm investing, it's a whole nother different mindset than just paying for something. And what's the cost of it? And I think that's key, is really generating a return. So again, this is all under kind of that first, I would say the second point, right? But the cost of inaction. And again, this is for everything. This is technology, this is partnerships. The longer you delay kind of exploring it to see if it is a good fit, okay? Because the timing's just not right. Well, this is interesting though. Timing is really, really crazy. Last year when COVID hit, a lot of organizations that I was talking to said, Rich, you know what? Timing's just not right. There's too many unknowns. And I literally like pushed in on them and said, well, that's more of a reason to put some technology in place. I'm like, because who knows what you're going to be tracking in the next couple of months as different laws and regulations are changing. And they're like, well, we're just going to hold off. We're going to kind of wait and see what happens. Well, guess what everybody's talking about right now? How are we going to easily track vaccination cards? How are we going to let our employees know that they can actually upload them somewhere in the system? And our team's working on it right now, right? And we're doubling down. And last year it was, everything around the CARES Act, FMLA tracking, the PPP loan reports. Again, what's the next thing? And put a system in place, put something in place, at least somewhere where you're keeping your metrics nice and orderly. That's huge. I would even say like the future mindset, I already kind of talked a little bit about this, is, the investing, the return on your investment, right? Is there a return? What does that look like? Hopefully everybody understands ROI here. If not, feel free, let's dialogue around that. But the future mindset is, I want to be able to make quick moves. My financial advisor, this is hilarious. Last year, the market crashed right at the beginning when like COVID, I think it was like March. And I'm like, I would love to make some quick moves in the stock market. I think everything's on sale. Let's have some fun, And he's like, hold on a second. You've got a lot of money tied up here. You got money tied up there. You want to make some quick moves. You need some flexibility. He's like, there's an advantage to that. You want to be able to actually pull money and move money and this, that, and the other. I'm like, but if I don't have it in the right place, and that's the key. If you don't have things in the right place, if you're not using the right platforms, if you're not actually like making sure your processes are together, and having somebody kind of help you and guide you through that, you might not be able to move as fast as you want to. There's something that's going to be holding you up in the process. And so that's kind of my encouragement to you is adapt these mindsets of investing and being willing to move fast, move quick. The speed of technology, the speed of business today, and what your employees are demanding, that's exactly what they want. They want something fast, quick. I'll share this real quick. So this was just something that was released, I think it was maybe a couple of months ago. And hopefully everybody can see that. But when you look at this chart, that first section, 1 to 100 employees, this is representative of how many software platforms an organization will be using. Okay, so the biggest one, 1 to 5 in that range. So if an organization has 1 to 100 employees, most likely they're using 1 to 5 pieces of HR technology. And that's representing what, 70% of the population there? That's a lot. That's a lot of platforms. Well, what's even scarier to me is the other ones, the 20%, which is that gray bar, they're using 5 to 10. And then you got about 5% that's using 10 to 15 different pieces of technology. To me, I'm like, how do you even manage that? Managing one piece of technology is enough, right? So how to free yourself up, okay? But still stay in control, drive the efficiency you need, run quicker, okay? I think those are the keys. Is you still want to feel in control. You don't always want to give that up, right? And I think we can all agree there's room for improvement in our businesses. And 2 areas that I see most often is where we need room for improvement is managing the people and managing data, right? We can always get better on that. And so I think some of us are better, based upon our skill set and our work experience to work with people and manage people. There's always a data component to that too, okay? And so where does that live? And can it be, used easily. And so I love kind of sharing this. I do this a lot with prospective clients and kind of walk them through this to say, you know, how to free yourself up is finding a good service. Okay, and that could be with a technology company in HR. Is their service model what you expect? Some people like just one number to call in to deal with one person and that's it. Others, they might like a platform that has a lot of interface and maybe a live chat in there so that they don't even have to talk to a human, right? Okay, they can just do everything from their living room. So what's the service model look like? And the access to data, that second point, that's huge. Do you like all the spreadsheets and maybe the reporting spits all that out, or do you like more of the data and analytics dashboards? You know, and do the different elements of the software, do they actually speak to each other? Do they engage with each other? I think that's something very important to understand. For some organizations, that's not the case, right? Some technology companies, they'll literally go out there and they'll buy other technology companies and then put it all under one umbrella. And in all reality, it's like 5 different companies that represent one technology product. And again, it'll work, absolutely. But identifying some of those things out there is very important to you, right? Understand exactly what is this tech. Chris, I know your background, you probably understand that. You know, that's the way that technology is built sometimes. It's, hey, they have a good, you know, time and labor system. Hey, they have a good performance review system. We have a good payroll system. Let's just buy them and make it look all nice and fancy like it's our family. And boom, there we go. We're now integrated. That happens, right? The automation piece. This is huge. Automation, in my opinion, and the integration, they fit hand in hand. Because you want to put some processes in place that eliminate all the extra paperwork, the double typing of things, the double entry, the manual errors. That's a big, big play. And the integration is making it so that data moves to certain places so you don't have to do it yourself. And one of the key plays that I see in the payroll and HR technology industry is integrations between like certification and learning and development platforms. So, you know, Chris, you had mentioned, you know, with your son with construction, if there's certain OSHA requirements or certain training out in the field, depending on what kind of jobs they're doing, they could be using a particular platform. Well, how does that data get into that platform so that they can take that training, that mandated training? You're probably going to have to key it in there. Or depending on what platform that is, they can use an API. Okay, I won't get into too much of the terminology, but they can literally pull the data out of our system, populate it there, so the employees don't have to enter additional data. You don't have to enter additional data. They work in collaboration. So there's integrations there, or with like a retirement platform. So for organizations that offer retirement, how awesome is that to be able to then process payroll in one system? And when you process payroll, the data automatically goes to the 401k. The only thing the business owner has to do, the person that's processing payroll, is just move the money. That's it. So instead of having to manipulate a spreadsheet, check this, check that, we already make sure all the data is in sync. Ease of use. Honestly, that's probably one of the biggest sticking points right now for a lot of organizations is, can we actually find a platform that our frontline employees are comfortable with? And I love asking that question to organizations is, tell me about your organization. Are they techie? And you're always going to say, yeah, except for one, that person that still has a flip phone, right? There's always one. But the ease of use, regardless of whether they have a flip phone or not, like, can they access a computer? Absolutely, great. The technology then allows for you, not just as an admin user, for the owner of a business to have easy access to your data, have easy ability to kind of move and shift things in there. But it's also your frontline employees. So think about it in 2 filters there. Ease of use, not just for you, but also for your frontline employees. And then the engagement and culture side of things. This is honestly, in my opinion, where the rubber meets the road for a lot of organizations. You can have a lot of great technology in place, but are you leveraging it to the max? And what kind of capabilities do they have to actually engage your employees and empower them? I think that was one of the key things for me, and why I partnered with Paylocity was three elements in their platform. And quick shout out to that is literally a peer-to-peer recognition platform, a communication platform, which both of those come free to every company we work with, and then a performance review piece. And that was all in one mobile app where I could see my pay stub and request my PTO, see my balance of PTO. But the performance review really captured me, because in the space that I was in before was all around employee engagement surveys, performance reviews. But my whole thing was, one time a year to have a conversation about my performance? No, I need more than that. I would love to have an open dialogue and an ongoing career coaching, right? And if it's all tied together. So if there's a disciplinary action, if it's a one-on-one career coaching, if it's upskilling because now I want to step into management and I'm being trained, I want to be able to have all of that information retained and understand it. And so there's platforms and different things that, if you don't ask, you don't know, kind of deal, right? But for me, I love saying, find the right tools that are going to engage your employees, so they're going to feel that they want to actually put data in, right? They want to be a part of the process, but also it's going to uplift the culture. Is it going to be something that adds to or detracts from? So again, the goal, and I'll stop here in a few minutes, and I would love to hear some questions from you guys, because there's a lot of things I didn't cover. I wanted to keep this kind of open, but the goal is really exactly this: finding HR technology that'll actually give you a competitive advantage. And sometimes it's kind of like, well, how does that do that? Well, you know what? There are certain pieces of technology that your employees will love. And because of that technology, their life will be less frustrating day to day when it comes to doing certain tasks, right? And even from a personal perspective, the ability to actually see your pay stub and to email it to whoever you need to for lending purposes, that's a breeze, right? In certain technology, talent retention, when people feel valued, that's a big, big play. And so if there's ways that you can leverage that technology to communicate to them, build trust with them, appreciate them, celebrate them, that's a big one. And the right partnership. Is the service what you expect? Is it people that you find there's a good, strong culture, not at their organization, but also at yours? There's similarities in the way that we operate, our vision. That's huge. Building community in your organization, right? There's nothing like it. And I think that that's something I even, we celebrated 9/11 over the weekends. And, I just think about the community at large, whether it was local, whether it was nationally, and that pride to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, right? An overall bigger mission. That's what I'm talking about here when I say build community. Is what's the mission that your organization strives to achieve? What are those values, and how are you kind of building that? And making sure that your organization understands it and that people feel it. And then the collaboration aspect. I think people working together on a project. It's all well and good to be out on the job site rubbing shoulders together, but where's that information being tracked and stored? Where's that collaborative spirit? Sometimes it's, I just want to be a loner. I want to go out and do it on my own. But there should be some kind of way that you can track some of that too. And there's tools out there to allow for that. Empower the employees. Gosh, I think that's what employees really want. They want to feel as though they have ownership in a business. I always think it's kind of funny. There are companies where it's, hey, if you come on board as an employee, you're technically an employee owned. It's employee owned. That's great, or you get stock in the company, but are they really building it like their business? And again, the more tools and certain things that you provide them, makes them actually feel that way, that actually, I have a piece of this. Like, I'm putting this together, this project, and it's not just what I'm supposed to be working on. It's also all the backgrounds, all the data and the things that really matter to the leadership. And that actually allows you, depending on the software you use, to see the utilization too. Are employees taking more time to actually do additional trainings than the ones you've just assigned to them? That was a big play, I think, at Paylocity years ago. They said, you know what? Rich McKee, he's in sales. We're going to have sales training for him, but we're also going to allow him to see every little bit of other training that's available at Paylocity. So if I want to, I can go in and take our software developers trainings. I can go in and take management trainings, and I can start now upskilling myself in different areas. Well, guess who can see that? The leadership, right? And they can kind of take a look who's completed what. They say, that's huge. Empower your employees. Give them the tools. It's not that you have to spend all the time on them, but give them the certain tools to actually find and explore their career path too. And ultimately, culture. Those values that your organization has. How are you keeping them in front of people? There's tools and technology to do that. Again, this is HR. This is HR technology. Putting those values in front of those individuals and allowing them to go out and strive to achieve that. And one of the biggest ones that I see repeat is teamwork. And it's great though. Tamer, you might go out to somebody that you work with out in the field. I know you said you're in real estate, but there might be a partner that you work with, and you say, hey, thank you so much for helping me to get that plumber in here to fix that situation. I really appreciate you helping me out there. That's great. That's a great conversation. That might be a 2-minute conversation you have, out on the sidewalk in front of a property. But that only goes so far. But imagine if there's a network of all the employees that you work with, okay? And let's say you have, a dozen or so employees, and that conversation now resonates and hits all of them on their mobile phone, and they can see that Tamer just appreciated so-and-so for teamwork. Guess what they're all going to want to do? They're all going to want to get appreciated for teamwork. And so now you have a buzz of people going, I'm going to puff up my chest, and I'm going to go work a little bit harder today, and I'm going to try to collaborate with people. That there's these things that happen. And again, not to get into the psychology of it all, but it's real. And so recognizing people and allowing other people to see it is huge. But again, you could go the old-fashioned way and do a town hall meeting and say, hey, Bill, come on, stand up. But if Bill doesn't like recognition in front of everybody, he might get a little uptight. So sometimes using the electronic platform is even better, right? So wanted to share kind of just some mindset, some things that will help kind of free you up, some areas that kind of tie you down, and just kind of share overall around HR technology, payroll technology. I want to open it for questions. I'm going to stop sharing. Please jump off of mute and engage with me. Would love to hear what I can do to help you out. Don't all be quiet now.
Rich, I put in a question. How and when does a small business decide that they should engage with a software technology for HR systems? How big do you need to be? When does it make sense or not make sense?
Great question. So really, at any point in time, I have an organization in Lancaster that has 1 employee on payroll. Right. And so, they're using basically just the payroll aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And the key for them is they wanted a simple place where they could track their time. That time would then equate to, a wage on the back end, right? Mm-hmm. That we kind of program in. They could then process payroll, have their deductions and taxes taken out, and get the direct deposit, right? And then also, we're going to be doing their taxes for them in their year-end report, right? So you're the W-2s, the 1099s, we do all that as well. So for them, they're like, wow, I don't have to worry about the taxes. I don't have to, like, it took so much off their plate that they could literally focus more in on actually running their business.
Okay.
But to have everything in place. Yeah, great question. Yep.
So just to build on that 1 second, because I heard you say something, you could be a one-person business, but have a number of contractors doing work for you. I heard you say 1099s.
Yes.
So you could use a payroll system to manage the transactions associated with 1099 contract workers. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so again, think about it from a perspective that you're going to have the W-2 employees that are getting like a weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly or monthly pay. But you're also probably going to do commissions. You might do bonuses. It might be a holiday pay. Might be like a 1099 scenario. So however you need it to kind of work out, yes. There's, all different ways that we can tweak our system and make it work. That's what we do well at.
Okay.
Yeah. Great question.
I have one more I'll throw out unless somebody's going to jump in. Integrating Paylocity to their accounting system like QuickBooks or whatever accounting software or Zoho that our company might have. Do most HR platforms integrate with accounting systems?
I'm gonna take a step back and say, be careful of the word integration when it comes to accounting systems.
Okay.
It's my disclosure right now.
Okay.
Because we all know this. Before we dump dollars, right? Before we dump the dollars into the GL and update the GL, you probably want to look at those numbers first. Can we all agree?
Okay.
Because if you mess up the general ledger, that can be chaotic, right?
Okay.
So the way that we work, it's not a direct integration. Okay. What we do for organizations, and I think this is a fair way of doing it, is when we process the payroll with an organization, we're going to work in collaboration with a company to say, great, what's your chart of accounts? Okay. For your general ledger. We're going to build a specialized report in our system. So when payroll's processed, they can export that report, look at it to verify, yes, this looks great. This is how much we had for this job, this is how we have marketing, however, it's all budgeted out, right? According to their GL. And then they can then import that into their general ledger to share it out. So we do a lot of work with QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, all the Sage products that are out there. So you name it. If there's a GL, we probably work with them in some shape or form, right? But it's more so exporting a file from our system, importing it there, so you have the visual. There are some organizations that claim that they integrate. I just have a strong hesitation. I don't know their systems personally, but I do know that I get phone calls and sometimes win business because of it. Because, hey, they told us this, but it didn't happen. Again, we all hear that, right? Okay, so I won't get any deeper into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Chris or Tamer or Uchenna, does anybody else have questions for Rich today?
Yes. One is, how do you, I'm going to be working with somebody who probably doesn't have that much technology. I don't even think from what I understand, I thought he was using QuickBooks, but he's actually using spreadsheets. And I need to kind of bring him up to using the database other than spreadsheets, just to get the data correct for what he's doing as far as his employees. And every day he's got to come in and he's got to put the numbers in as to the hours that each employee worked. They don't have, I guess, access to that spreadsheet.
Yep. Yeah, and so this is Christopher, a prime example where they don't have access to a spreadsheet. You need to arm them with something. you need to give them access to something, right? And so that's where leveraging technology, where, again, if they're out in the field, they can record their hours in an app that easily transports data, again, where you could access that software and either export that information and drop it in to do payroll, or it's in one system, right? In an ideal picture, right? They show up to the job site, they pull out their mobile phone, they punch in, right? They might even be able to say, oh, I'm unloading the truck for the first 2 hours, and then I'm actually doing plumbing the next 4 hours. Maybe they can actually choose different things that they're doing, right? Job costing. But all that data then and the wages associated are pushed into payroll, right? So that way it eliminates that spreadsheet all entirely. Instead, it's now on in the cloud-based system, right? Yeah. So that data is moving. You can literally see real time what people are doing and where.
Yeah, that's as explained. I went through that with Donnelly, doing that. So I understand that. Do you see a lot of need for ad hoc type reporting that the user can do? Or do you see that usually there's certain set programming that is needed? We never really gave them ad hoc programming possibilities, just because we didn't trust them to to do it right.
Yeah, I'll say this. What we have done, and I can only do it from my perspective, is we take a look at what are the most frequently reported on pieces of data, and we've created all those reports as standard reports to the tune where we have like over 300 standard reports that we see in the industry. But then also, one of the most cumbersome things in our industry is then being asked like, hey, can you run this custom report? And then we have to go back to a client and say, oh, it's going to take us a couple of weeks and we have to charge you for it. So we did away with some of that. And we actually built a report writer, right? So there are some systems that have that. So if you need to find different pieces of data in the system that aren't part of a particular report, you can do that. So that's something to be aware of too. It's not just a once in a while thing, and you can save that report, right? So you can have that favorite report in your system that you go to because you're just so unique that's the only, nobody else is as unique as you, right? That kind of deal. I need that report. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I mean, with my situation with my son, it's he's going to need certain reports. I'll need certain reports, and I just was wondering if if he wanted to find out, for instance, he's tracking how much lumber costs have gone up. Big deal these days, and somehow match that with what his estimates are going to be, because they that's something he's going to have to do.
Yeah, and I'll just say this too, like there's when you're talking about like estimating and you're talking about POS systems, like that's outside of HR, right? So that's something that I can kind of speak to because I understand data and what's needed, but that definitely lives outside. So that would probably be some type of different tech that probably will not interface with ours, right?
Right.
Just depends on the nature of it. Yeah.
But we would have to kind of look at the costs of other things that are going up and to kind of affect our HR.
Correct. Yeah. I know we're getting close to the time, but definitely. Yeah.
So I have two things. First, I'm going to launch this poll. So if those of you participating can just answer 2 quick questions, that would be great. And while you're doing that, I think the question that you were asking, Christopher, is really helpful because in the type of business your son is in, he has to really be smart in doing job costing. And in this volatile environment for material costs and delivery and so forth, it's difficult. So you want to be able to marry your HR cost with your material cost so that you can put it together into a solution.
Yeah.
and bid it. And there are some other systems that you might want to look into that can help you with how to bid a job better. From the HR database, you may be able to get the information on how much time it takes to do a job so that you can better budget labor. But you'll want to marry that with material costs and delivery and other things to come up with the total bid. So you want to know that the systems you're choosing to work with are user friendly and can give you the information that you need.
Yes,
absolutely. Labor cost is huge. I think that's and to have the right dashboard and visibility into it is going to be key. Yeah, that's good.
So you would be able to get that from an HR system in terms of how much time it takes to do a job, so that you can better estimate going forward, which would be a plus.
Correct.
Okay.
Definitely.
Any other questions anybody has today? Nope. So what I'll be doing from here is I'll follow up with an email. We'll provide you a link to the YouTube of this if you want to review it and evaluate it further as you're thinking about things and doing your business planning for your small businesses. So I will be sending you a YouTube link, and I'll also send you a PDF of the presentation that can be helpful for your planning. And as SCORE, we appreciate your joining us today and participating in today's presentation. And Rich, thank you very much for putting this presentation together. And
thank you for the invite.
It was an asset. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.